Welcome to the Escarpment. This is my model railway HO build channel and I'm your host Jason. So today's video, well, as you can see here, it's back to the control panels. So today's video I'm going to take you through and show you how I've put the frame together, as well as all the wiring in the background, on how I do it anyway. What I'm going to do is just take you through some of the major steps that I went through to put the frame together, as well as all the wiring in the back end. I've tried to keep this video as short as possible, just so you don't get bored, because there's a lot of in-between work to be done. So all I'm going to do is show you some of the major steps, and then I'm going to go through off camera, finish that particular step, and then come back and show you the new one. Let's get started. Now with mine, I've gone with a border 40mm in height and 12mm in thickness. Now I've gone with a 45-degree cut, you can see there, and you can see here, fits the board very well. So the easiest way I'm going to do this is I usually take some painter's tape, and what I'll do, I'll just move this up here out of the way for a moment. I'll bring this board, this side of the frame in, as well as this one, and I normally butt them up like that, and then I just take a bit of painter's tape and just tape like that. Put some glue on, fold it up like that, and it's just a lot easier to get it all in place like that. So next, I'm going to grab some glue. I'm just going to temporarily put that in place while I do this other one. And we're going to temporarily put that in place. So what we're going to do next, I'm going to bring the clamps in. Now, I highly recommend using this type of clamp, just due to the fact that I've tried a few other cheaper versions where the clamps that'll do the corners, but I've just found they don't give you a nice, neat corner connection. I'm just getting these clamps, corner clamps, right. Get some tension back up on this frame. Don't need too much, just as long as it's held in place nice and firmly for the glue to set. Because what I will do once the glue sets, I normally come back and put a couple nails in each corner with my nail gun. Next, what I'm going to do, one of the things that I did when setting up this panel was to get the fascia flat with the front face. I needed to put supports on the inside to hold this within the frame itself. So what I've done is sort of gone out and buy these, I think they're 12 by 12. I've used these as the support mechanisms internal to the frame itself. So what I normally do, I set these out. I do 4 corners as well. Now because I've left the board there, I just need to make sure I don't get glue spilling out onto the board. So I will normally just run a bead of glue along the top edge, just like that. And roughly put it in the middle. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, but roughly there. And then I'll use these clamps that come in and just hold that in place. Do the 2 corners. And there you have it. That's the first phase. That's basically the frame. I've just removed the clamps. I put a couple nails in just to sort of hold things to help with the glue over time. I'm going to go around and add some putty. Once that dries, I'll come back, sand that, and that'll be almost ready for painting. I'm going to put a 3mm sheeting across this area here. Now the reason being is the way I've designed it, where it sort of hooks onto the layout. This
strip, because it's 3mm, it's the same as my fascia on the layout, and what that will do is that section there will sit on top of the fascia on the layout. Got this piece cut out as mentioned. Now all I'm going to do is just screw this into the back. I might put a little bit of glue, but it's really not necessary. So I fastened that backing board on now. I've just sort of cleaned it up with a little bit of putty just around the edges. With the design, I decided not to put holes into the control panels and screw them from the top. What I've done, or what I will be doing and have done on the previous control panels, is I've actually glued this in place into the frame. So I've got now this board in place, it's been cleaned up. You can sort of see it fits in like that. Now glue the control panel to the frame. Sometimes these bow out a little bit. You can probably see a little bit of movement there. Since I've got the glue on each side, what I'm going to do, take a clamp and just bring these two sides in. Let this sit overnight. It'll probably sit for a couple of days before I get back up here anyway. So I've got the panel up here on the workbench. You'll see I've actually made up, or got these custom PCB boards made up, and what they do is they actually take these double pole, double throw switches and turn them into a reverse switch, meaning, you know, when you switch the switch itself, it'll reverse the current, and hence why we've got then the LEDs wired up in parallel. So before I get started, I've gone ahead, I've soldered the top two lugs of each of these PCB boards onto the switches, ready to go. I've put the LEDs in place and hot glued them in. You can tell here that I've numbered 1 to 14. Now this is basically lines up with the other side, 1 to 14, just making sure I've got everything in sequence, and basically I'm wiring the right LED to the right switch, etc. Now what I do once I've got them in place, I make sure that each of the LEDs are reversed to each other, meaning, you know, if that's the cathode there, then I make sure the corresponding other LED, the cathode's on that side, because what I'm going to do is basically go through and then cross the two legs over and solder them together, and this basically sets up the circuit. So I've gone ahead and crossed over all the legs to each of the LED pairs. You'll notice here I've got a set of 3, so I've got a set of crossovers here. I'll come back to that one, but what I'm going to do now is just sort of go in and get all these legs soldered together, ready for the resistors. So I'm just going to go ahead and just do one of these on camera. Just takes a little bit, not too much. So I've gone ahead and soldered all the legs together. I've just got my power supply here set to about 2.5 volts. So if I come in, you can see one side gets lit up, and if I switch the polarity, you can see the other side gets lit up, and that's the same with all of them. You can sort of see here and then here. In relation to the crossover where I've got 3 LEDs, the first 2 are similar to the pairs where they are opposite to each other, but then this one is the same as the one up here, because what you want to do is have these 2 N1s turn on, and right here they'd be like for the main, and then only the middle one to light up when you set the crossovers to switch tracks. So what I'm going to do first is just solder these two together, and then I'm going to come in with a wire and sort of come in and solder that across there and join them all up. So I'm just going to get those legs soldered together, the first pair soldered together. Okay, and now I've got a second piece of wire which I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to dab a little bit of solder on the tip and then do this other side. I'm going to get these joined. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you, take my workbench power supply and just show you how they work together. So again, I've got my power supplies, 2.5 volts. And then if I touch these two, you can see the middle one lights up. And if I switch polarity, the two N1s should light up. So I just need to get 2 resistors, put them on each of those sides. When working out your resistors, it really comes down to not only so you don't blow your LEDs, but it's also, you know, how high in value do you want to dim the LEDs. For me, I ended up using a 51k ohm resistor, and the brightness was just right for me, so that's worked quite well for me. But like I say, you just need to do some testing, get a couple different resistors, different values, and just do some testing for yourself. Get some solder on the tip. I just find this really easy to do that way. I just need to come in and there you go. And I'll get one on the other side. Just put a little bit on the tip. I'm going to come in and do that. Just cut these down. So I've gone ahead, I've done all the resistors. They're now all in place, ready to be wired up. With the one with the crossover, all I've done is just put a resistor at one of the junctions. It doesn't matter which one. And basically this is how your parallel circuit is set up. Each of these switches need power, obviously, to power the LEDs, but also then to transfer the power onto the point motors. What I've done a little bit different, for those that might have caught that video that I deleted, the one with the series circuit, I've actually changed my approach to the power bus. And if I can sort of tilt this here and show you, because wiring each of these switches, you know, it is time consuming. So what I've ended up doing is taken, mind my arm, is taken some copper tape, and I've sort of taped in two, one to represent the positive, one to represent the negative, and I'll sort of do the same for each of these sections here. And then what I've done is taken the wires that I actually cut off the resistors, I've actually used here to solder onto the lugs, and you know, solder the positive to the positive, and then I'll make this top one a negative. I've done the first one there. I'm just going to go through and I'll get the rest of these done. I've gone ahead and put in the power bus, and you can see here I've got the positive and negative wires in place. You can see down along here I've used some wire to connect each of these sides to the copper tape. I've already got everything soldered in place to supply power to each and every one of these switches. So I've gone ahead and wired up one of the switches. It's probably easier to take you through it that way than to sort of explain it as I'm putting it together. Now you can see here I've got the blue wire and a white wire. The blue wire represents the input on that side, the left hand side of the switch on the middle lug, and then the white wire is on the middle lug on the right hand side. Now each of these wires get wired together with a yellow wire. Now these yellow wires I just use as my inputs and outputs to the point motors. So with this power block that will sit here, these wires will go to their own sets, and then on the output those two sets will go off to point number one, should I say point motor number one, whatever the code may be on the actual control panel. As these two wires get wired together, a full, well, whatever I've got my voltage set at goes to the point motor. The resistor helps limit the current to the LEDs, which are in parallel in this circuit here, and that's the same as this side here. Now I don't know if it shows up too well. What I might do, I've got my power supply hooked up with 9 volts at the moment. I'm not quite sure if you can see that green, it's quite faint. What I might do is just turn this light off for a moment. It might be easier to see, so you can sort of see in its current configuration that LED's lit. Now if I flip the switch, it's going to reverse the current, and then the other side lights up and that one turns off. So in any one time in that parallel circuit, it'll flow one way or the other depending on which way that switch is thrown. So that is the sequence on how I wire up the back end to my switches, and basically I'll be going through and doing each switch to the corresponding number as seen on the panel here. So this stage of the wiring's been done, so I've got all the switches now wired to the LEDs. All these loose wires you can see, obviously once I put this backing board on and get some of those power distribution boards in place, these will then be connected to those, and then basically the panel will be complete, ready to be installed onto the layout. I will, before I put this back panel on, I am going to go and spray and coat the power bus strips, just to give me some some insurance for future use, so it doesn't just start to peel off, that type of thing. So all the wiring's now been done and connected, both to the LED switches but also the power distribution boards up here. So if I can sort of show you, if it comes up on camera, all my distribution boards are numbered corresponding to the right switch and where it needs to go to as far as the point motors go. So I've just tidied up a little bit with some cable ties, always come in handy. So what I might do now is just a bit of a demonstration on the front. I don't know if that'll come up okay. Let me just turn the power supply on. I might just get rid of this overhead light, might just show a little bit better, and I thought I'd just demonstrate with the switches. So over here, switch 1, and that's where the point 1 will be, point motor. You can see there, 2, and 3 up here. And then this is where the crossover is. You can see there it crosses. So everything's looking good. Number 6, number 7 up there, 8 is this one here. I might just do 6, you can line them up. Now 10, line them all up there, and 12 too. And you can see the route. Actually, if I switch 2, you can see the route come through up and beyond. So they're all looking good. So that's all ready to go to now be put onto the layout.
that's how I put together the particular Owen locomotive depot control panel. That will go over there on the level 2 branch line behind this helix here. Now I'm not going to carry on with a lot of waffle, but basically you can see here, this is the port Kembler. This is how it looks when it's on the layout. You can see here and here, the point motor's working. So what I'm going to do, once I get to the point where I've got that one attached to the layout and ready to do wiring, I'll probably just take you through a quick video just to show you how, or my technique on how I wire it underneath the layout. So with that said, until next time, bye for now.